Tom, which social media service, platform, app do you spend the most time on nowadays?
Reddit.
Reddit? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you noticed an increase in, shall we say, UGC videos of feels like it's people doing talking heads to their FaceTime telling you something about a product or a news article or whatever it might be?
Yeah, there's been some fishy stuff. I mean, there's like the talking babies and the talking like animals,
Of course.
but people that are creating you're talking about like AI influencer type that is like, look at my vacation spot, talk about whatever. Yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah, it's definitely everywhere, and it's feeling more, shall we say, mainstream, because it felt like a lot of up and coming brands would be doing their marketing with some AI video, but it has now hit the likes of the Johnson and Johnsons and the Hershey's of the world and whatnot. I've seen doing it now, and so I'm bringing that up to ask you the question: have you heard of the tool Higgsfield?
Higgsfield?
Yeah.
I am familiar with the Higgs field, or Higgs boson, but no, I haven't heard of the AI tool.
Higgsfield is the most Gen Z coded UX design I've seen. I love it. I think a lot of people hate it, but I love it. But hidden behind this somewhat messy looking at first glance UX is a ton of tools for marketers. And it's fascinating to see who's trying to take existing tools like a Canva, for instance, and sprinkle in AI versus these new, call it AI first companies that are using the creative side of AI to serve marketers in a better way. Because I think a lot of people were used to the first era of AI slop marketing of the content slop. The images look terrible. Everything looked glossy and fake. But we've advanced so much so quickly that between, Nano Banana on the image side, and then we've got, VO, for example, on the video side, there's just a lot of different models that people are using to test out different scenarios of how they're doing their marketing. And Higgsfield is a tool that you sign up to the one service and they have access to all these models from different providers. They've got models in there from Anthropic and OpenAI, but also Google's, has the more creative ones, I would argue, right now than those two. And then they've also got a bunch of other ones in terms of being able to edit existing images and play around with clothing in UGC and create videos, because the entire product, and why I'm recommending it, is it's based around marketers. So it brings together all of these models, but then layers on top of that. Do you want to create a UGC video? Or do you want to have someone doing a photo shoot, but with your clothing from your brand? Do you want someone reviewing something that you sell and create a fake influencer? I'm not excited by this tool because of what it's doing to marketing, but because it is very clear, I think now to a lot of people, that there's not going to be one single model provider in the next 3 to 5 years, probably, that just does everything perfectly the way everyone wants it. There's going to be different companies with better models and therefore tools for different things that you want to do. And so Higgsfield, I think, is a great example of that.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, do you bring your own keys to these models, or do you buy credits and then you select it from a dropdown?
It is credit based. The end user is more of the end user in marketing, not a technical person who wants a command center for their AIs. So it's geared towards credits so that, any marketer could go sign up with no technical skill and be able to start using all these different models right away. So I do wonder, because to your point, a lot of AI tools are providing those options where you can use credits with their models or provide your own API key, partly for pricing and partly for security and compliance too.
Yes.
So right now, this is not one that lets you bring your own keys. But at the same time, most marketers, when they're generating an image, aren't going to have, a ton of secret proprietary information versus, say, a finance team using AI.
Yeah. And my other question, I just find that to be fascinating, the difference between tools that allow you to bring your own keys and tools that force you to, force or don't allow, right? Like that.
Yeah.
That divide is a definite decision on behalf of the tool to get a little bit extra margin or give a little bit of extra transparency. The other question is, you started this conversation with a product that is designed for Gen Z. What makes it designed for Gen Z? How do you have a UX that is Gen Z? Explain that.
If we want to take a detour into design, I would say that there's a trend in UX design and even website design and graphic design with Gen Z. Like there is a inherent messiness to it, and structure is very different. Like it's trying to do a lot on the screen at once. I think the previous era of a lot of, call it UX design was very, we need a long page with lots of white space and everything feeling like it's linear. And Gen Z code is UX design, as I think about it, is like they've taken all of that and they're willing to put it on the screen, and like they're doing a good job of making it clear that these are different pieces of content or features, but they are all on one screen. So Higgsfield's landing page is a good example of that, of like, look how much just a landing page is trying to do. And it's also a very utilitarian approach. I find there's a lot of things that are, you can get to the old school, like fine tuning settings, menus and whatnot, but the main interfaces tend to be pretty utilitarian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fascinating distinction. I wonder what their user adoption looks like. I would imagine Gen Z is probably one of the primary users, since they're, outpace a lot of the users on social platforms generally right now.
I reading between the lines, it seems like they have a great product team because they are building useful AI features, but they know their target market is your everyday marketer who they inherently like to stay on top of trends. So the design of it probably doesn't bother them as much as, say, a corporate finance tool. I think, someone who has that kind of role, like a CFO who's looking at tools, if the finance equivalent to this was designed this way, they'd probably be like, absolutely not. What is this? But it's interesting to see. But it's also the other big thing about Higgsfield of like, it just shows how much demand there is to be able to easily switch your models, and just how much demand there is becoming in general. Because like I started this with the question to you, and we're both seeing it, as I'm sure most people are, of every social network you go on right now has videos, and we're already at a point where people are second guessing everything from, news related items in public view to UGC, an influencer shilling matcha on Instagram. Both ends of those spectrums are both being flooded with, AI based video, and people are getting to the point where they're like, I don't actually know anymore. And so it's fascinating to see tools that are enabling that, which for marketing purposes, I'm not here to pass judgment, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I wonder, that has its own product opportunity, right? Like a Chrome plugin or a browser or something that actually identifies, has the extra layer of whatever in there to just flag it outright. Because Nano Banana images, these videos, it's really hard to tell. I think that's, kind of so last year to be able to tell what is AI generated and what's not, unless you have the tool that actually says, no, this is definitely a deep fake, this is definitely a whatever.
Yeah, so that's the other AI observation of like how normalized it's becoming to generate, AI photos for, like I said, some of the big players in marketing. But that indicates the demand is there and growing. The supply is in short constraint, which I think is what you want to talk about for AI, the supply side of fulfilling all these AI prompts we're all doing all day.
Yeah, one of the other big stories out of this past week was Oracle casually adding $1 trillion to their market cap.
Where did that pop come from? I saw the headline, but I didn't read deeper, so fill me in.
The deeper story here is that Oracle is traditionally an ERP. It's a large enterprise resource planning tool. It has these giant accounts with huge companies that does everything from task and project management to time tracking to accounting to everything for operating a multinational company. They're a software company. Oracle traditionally was thought of that way, right? Biggest competitors are a company like SAP or just other ERP systems that are less well known. It's really Oracle and SAP are like the big two.
Yeah.
But this past quarter, and after their earnings was announced and everything, they had the best day in the market that they've ever had as a company, which is like, whoa, I wonder why. And a lot of it was driven by the transition that they made from just being a software company to being a software company and a AI infrastructure hardware company too.
Oh yeah.
And the added layer is that their software is being positioned to handle multiple clouds. So they have a multi-cloud architecture that allows them to maybe or maybe not be on Oracle's servers, and maybe or maybe not be on AWS and Google Cloud and your own internal hardware, but their software would allow for the rolling up, basically, of these different cloud providers that a AI company or a giant multinational corporation has, so that they can maintain that flexibility of sourcing the hardware to run and serve whatever it is they need to serve to all of their internal staff.
So where did the market pop come from this week? Because they've been working on that for a while. Like Stargate was recently announced, the $500 billion project with SoftBank and OpenAI were the headliners, but Oracle was standing there announcing it too. To your point, like they're an infrastructure provider, but they announced that 6 months ago now. Like what popped this week, or was the gradual increase and they just hit it?
No, this was not a gradual increase. It was like, I think, a fundamental misunderstanding or skepticism of the financial markets, imagining that Oracle wouldn't actually make this AI transition to be a core part of the business.
Right.
So they had multiple multi-billion-dollar contracts signed. They had, announced a couple other deals too. And there's all this, outstanding deals now that they need to fulfill. Financial markets do what financial markets do. They do their price per earnings. They do all these other ratios for things, and money flows in. So it's interesting how it's kind of reshaping the way that the cloud wars are happening, right? You have AWS and Google Cloud leading the way, but then Oracle is this interesting software now infrastructure hybrid that won a Microsoft contract and an OpenAI contract, and is actually, buying a ton of chips from NVIDIA to be able to supply all of this, infrastructure side. So it's kind of shaking up the way that these cloud providers are competing against each other. And I think, being a software company to begin with, it makes it a really interesting transition for Oracle.
Well, and do you think like the kinds of clients that we work with are going to be interested in this? Like, how does this matter to them?
So I think in the most ironic way possible, I actually spoke with, some potential clients of mine this week who are getting off of Oracle. And I thought that was so fascinating that the same week that all of these, massive achievements are happening in Oracle publicly, I don't talk to a whole bunch of people transitioning off of Oracle, right? Like when you're on a system like that, you're pretty embedded.
Yeah.
And the fact that they, have gone through this process to try to get off of it because they're not feeling the AI first component of the software was interesting to me. I think for us, it doesn't really change much, at least with the companies that I am seeing most often, because the companies that I'm seeing most often are focused on tying together their existing software tools, and the fact that, this potential scenario is like, hey, Oracle is just not working for me. My team is frustrated by it. I can't assign things in a particular way or whatever. And they're coming back to the SaaS world. I just thought that was really fascinating. I'm curious if you're getting a different side of that coin.
I think a lot of the teams that we're working with are not as concerned about the overall infrastructure compared to their model provider, and that's kind of, they just want the API calls, and their data is still all over the place. I do think though that because it's so clear to everyone in tech that like medium-sized businesses might not need a full-blown, Snowflake database like data lakes and data warehouses, but they can't have just spreadsheets or a SQL database that 3 technical people know how to use. So I am watching what Oracle is doing, just as I am kind of AWS and Azure on the technical side, in terms of like, how are you adapting these giant monolithic data infrastructures into this era, both on the AI side and the fact that they need to move beyond just enterprise for data infrastructure of basically being data lakes, or you're on your own amongst all your tools and figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to watch, but it's creating this constant uncertainty to answer your question, amongst our clients of like, which model should we actually even trust? Like, they're more concerned about the models because it's like there's so much change, which is my story of the week that stood out to me is everyone is getting antsy to give the market more clear signals of how these companies are doing, both financially and relationship wise, because there's so much drama. And so this week, did you see the joint statement from OpenAI and Microsoft?
You mean the 3 sentences that they co-published?
Literally 3 sentences. This was announced from formal PR teams on both sides, on their websites, from their socials. And the title of it, I'll read it because it's 3 sentences. Well, 4 if you count the title. The title is just a joint statement from OpenAI and Microsoft. And all that they said was OpenAI and Microsoft have signed a non-binding memorandum of understanding for the next phase of our partnership. We are actively working to finalize contractual terms in a definitive agreement. Together, we remain focused on delivering the best AI tools for everyone, grounded in our shared commitment to safety, which is wild to me. Like, you can tell that inherently they're trying to get ahead of something leaking and PR statements being upended by leaks of whatever they're doing. But it's so clear that everyone is so antsy that they felt the need to make a pre-announcement of an announcement that they will eventually make, which they gave no insight into what it is, when that will be, any of that stuff. And there's tons of chatter, but it's fascinating to watch these kinds of antics play into what we see with clients too. Like we were just talking about with Oracle stuff. Like, can I trust these companies yet, regardless of how great the tech is? Can the company itself be trusted to be here or not to change everything, or et cetera, et cetera?
It's just so phenomenally vague in a way that you almost couldn't be more vague, besides taking away from that statement, like, okay, it's going to be safe. Whatever it is, it's safe, right? Like, that's the only definitive thing that they said. And OpenAI, especially, I feel like I recall a couple months ago, they had a really big announcement with Johnny Ive and Loveform, the ex chief designer from Apple, that OpenAI and Sam Altman joined forces with Johnny Ive, the iPod designer, famous iPod designer. Like, do you know what's happening with that? Like, it was just OpenAI just churning out vague news.
No, I think they're working on stuff. Like the Love From acquisition was, I think, to have the PR run of like, we're announcing the acquisition, but we're working on hardware. And Johnny and team are treating it like they're still at Apple in terms of like, we're not going to talk about this until it's ready to unveil. So my hunch is they're working on it. Just like Apple, if you don't know, you hear rumblings of something coming, but you don't really know exactly all the details till they announce it.
Yeah. Hey, it's not built in public, that's for sure.
That's the funny thing. I think that's what drives so much uneasiness amongst people, is that they say so much publicly about what they're doing, but then there's always bigger trauma that just leaks out. And that's, at the end of the day, who cares? As long as everything works and we do it safely. But it is wild to watch.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the Oracle news in particular is just like the first really clearly communicated signal that, hey, there's like some AI things that are working and we're implementing that, and now we're diversifying into like a new area. But I mean, we touched on it briefly last episode about the MIT study, 95% fail, right? And I wonder what Oracle's success rate is, and how many of those Oracle studies or of the Oracle projects were like part of the MIT study. I don't know if we'll ever know, but it's I still think it's a lot of hype.
Which part?
The magnitude of Oracle's announcement transition, like, just to add that much. I mean, Larry Ellison took over as the richest man in the world because of this week's news, right? I mean, that's crazy that in one news cycle you can go from, I don't know what number he was, to number one now. It's like, that's just bonkers. It's so much hype and it's so much unknown unknowns, I feel.
Well, the final piece of the more narrative of what's going on versus, I know we're here to talk about the tech, but it is fascinating to me that Larry Ellison owns Oracle, and his son David Ellison started a movie studio with family money called Skydance, which produced like Mission Impossible and a bunch of stuff. And then Skydance just bought Paramount. Deal took a while to go through approval, and that's done. And now as Larry Ellison is standing in the White House announcing Stargate as an AI deal, his son is, working with the government to push through his Paramount deal, and now is moving on, feels so confident that they're moving on to try to buy Paramount now that he owns that, to try to buy Warner Brothers, which would be huge. So it's all just a lot of people shaking hands, moving around each other with money. But
Yeah,
for this week,
shares.
that's our updates. Anything else to chat about this week, Tom?
I don't think so. I think I got to get back to building.
Okay, me too. Chat later.
See ya.
Bye.